Hello, my friends. It is Monday, October 21st, 2024. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide you with some context in the war in Ukraine. Today is a landmark. This is the highest daily casualty rate that I've seen ever since the war began. I could be wrong, but I don't think that I am, that this is the highest day-over-day numbers. I even went out to Perplexity to check on, now, Perplexity is an AI system. It's kind of like ChatGPT, that sort of thing. In Perplexity, I asked, what is the highest daily Russian casualties in Ukraine war according to Ukraine? The highest single-day loss of Russian forces, according to Ukrainian data, occurred May 2024, 1,580 soldiers. Now, this past week, we had two occasions where there were more than 1,500 soldiers. It wasn't 1,580, but it was over 1,500. So 1,710. I believe this is the highest throughout the war. And correct me if I'm wrong. Put that in the comments. 24 tanks, 64 armored fighting vehicles, 24 artillery systems, 47 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, what's driving this? Why is this so high? And remember, the number, and I'll go to Perplexity, I've talked about this before, the British Ministry of Defense estimated that the average daily casualty rate for Russian forces reached 1271 in September of 2024. That was the highest monthly rate, was 1271, and we're looking at daily 1710. That's significantly higher. Okay, now what's going on? I think this explains it. Servicemen from the assault company of the 19th Tank Regiment, 25th Army, currently stationed illegally in the Kupiansk-Lyman area, claim that their command is planning to eliminate them for refusing to follow what one fighter described as reckless orders, which have resulted in heavy losses. Why? Because the generals will get promoted or decorations or whatever if they send their men into slaughter and take very marginal pieces of ground. They report refusing to advance any further, having lost 90% of their personnel in each assault. So that's what's happening here. We're just going to see what this guy has to say. Let me introduce myself. My call sign is Azid. Name. We're the servicemen of the Assault Company, 19th Tank Regiment, 25th Army. Currently, we are taking circular defense. On the other side are the blanks who shell us day and night. On the other are the blanks who want to zero us out. And there he's talking about his own army, simply because we refuse to carry out their dumb, drunk orders. Our battalion commander, call sign Atlas, a few days ago started nullifying our fighters, literally lynching us, killing our people in our group 5 together with his mate, and they killed the lads for refusing to go forward because they lose 90% of people with each assault. There are a few of us left, and we are under threat of our own people. Commanders, we are taking circular defense now. We are not going to retreat, despite the upsetting moments. Our lads haven't had leave for over a year, haven't seen their wives, their mothers. There is no supply. All that we wear now, we bought with our own money, aside from perhaps these pixel uniforms given at training grounds, these masks and helmets. Some are so blanking desperate now that they don't wear armored vests, or helmets, or guns because they don't give a blank anymore. Sorry for my French. We're just tired. Our battalion commander did a lot of bad things. Now to the people, they don't want to go on established missions or assaults under his command. I can talk about many sad moments. Okay, you get the gist here. It's very bad. So these are Russians appealing for help. And yeah, so that I think gives you a good picture of what's going on. Chris Owicki commented, maybe if they filmed it as a rap video, they'd have better prospects of success. And, he's joking, and he's talking about the Akhmad commander, this guy here, and the Akhmad, TikTok militants from Chechnya. Okay, he's saying, we have already won NATO's war against Russia through Ukraine because Ukraine does not have the resources to really defeat us. He says the person he's talking to in the podcast doesn't seem to believe him. But hey, he's staying alive because they don't really do much. They just do these videos, and then they swoop in as soon as the Russian military has done something useful, or they stay away if the Russian military gets beaten up. Maybe that's a better strategy for them. Okay, so the Russian forces are clearly trying to advance. They're trying to gain some ground, and they're getting hammered in the process. Russian forces recently marginally advanced southeast of Pokrovsk. Russian mill bloggers claim that the Russian forces advancing along unspecified streets in eastern Seldov. Select Russian mill bloggers claim that Russian forces advanced in the outskirts of Vinnytsia, south of Pokrovsk and immediately west of Seldov. Russian mill bloggers also claim that Russian forces advanced into Vodzhenka, east of Pokrovsk. I'm sorry if I slaughtered that, but these names are new, some of them to me. Russian forces recently advanced near Terezk. Russian mill bloggers claim Russian forces also advanced south of Terezk. Russian forces continue to offensive operations north of Terezk. So they're really trying to gain some ground before winter or mud season or whatever sets in. Now, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what it's like with the Shahed drones. This is Shahed drones going right over people's houses. Let's look at this again. Like, look how close that's the threat that they face, the reality that they face regularly. A video from the Sumy region appeared online and showed a Russian Shahed drone flying extremely close to a house rooftop. Ukrainian reality. So that's what they're experiencing regularly. Now, how many of them we'll talk about in just a moment. Overnight, Russia attacked a civilian population in Kharkiv with glide bombs, striking apartment buildings, garages, gas stations, private homes, cars, 13 victims. But Ukraine is still forbidden by the U.S. from striking the sources of these attacks with Western weapons. It's unbelievable to my mind. Now, how many drones? Well, okay, so they didn't hit any of the missiles that were shot overnight, but there were 116 Shahed drones. 59 out of those were shot down. Some were taken down by electronic warfare, so about 104 out of 116. But still, Shaheds are menacing, right? Russia launched 6,000 plus such drones in 2024, right? It's unbelievable what's going on day over day. Andrew Perpetua talks about Europeans when there's a school shooting in the U.S. OMG, why don't they do something to stop this? And Europeans when Russia shoots a school in Ukraine or, destroys it with bomb. Thoughts and prayers. Like, do something about this. And it's not just Europeans. The Biden administration needs to be doing something more about this as well. Okay. I thought this was really fascinating. We reinvent anti-drone weapons every month. If we don't, we die. Now, yesterday I talked about drone weapons and like what the war is going to be like. I did an entire standalone video about that. This is really, really interesting. Ukraine has to invent new EW systems, electronic warfare systems, every month, according to the Times. Ukraine has to create new solutions within just weeks to effectively counter Russia's changing weapons. One of the new products is a ground robot equipped with special antennas capable of blocking drone signals within a radius of up to 300 meters. This robot can not only neutralize drones, but it can also be used to evacuate the wounded from the battlefield. Antennas create a dome defense, blocking radio signals and the cause of directional action, and can disable the drone at a distance of up to 10 kilometers. Another development is a hedgehog-type backpack, like you see here. Okay, hedgehog-type backpacks equipped with a large number of antennas operating in different frequency bands and allowing to jam drones. These devices provide protection up to several kilometers away and cost about $6,000 per unit. These innovations are designed to save the lives of defenders on the front lines. And the head of commercial direction of the company said, if you're on the front line without this equipment, you're unlikely to live longer than an hour. It's bad, but they're trying to figure out how to fix it. And the Ukrainians are just crazy smart and thinking through this. Okay, meanwhile, other news, Mikhail Rogachev, former vice president of the Russian oil company Yukos, reportedly jumped out of a window in Moscow. Whether he jumped out or not, we just don't know yet. His body was found by a Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia employee, which makes his jumping a little suspect, and his family says that there were no preconditions for his suicide. He had breakfast with his family, was in a normal mood, and then his body was found under the window of his house. So, okay. Now, let's go back in time a little bit. A reporter asked President Clinton if he would be willing to support Ukraine's territorial integrity if Russia seized Crimea after Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal, and Clinton just brushed it off. So here's the video.
Mr. President Clinton, are you prepared to support the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine in case Russia seizes Crimea? І, пане президенте, добрий день. Беручи до уваги, що українська закордонна політика зорується на інтеграції з Європою, і навіть ваші вчорашні заяви про загрозу відновлення російського імперіалізму.
Your recent statement about the resurrection of the Russian imperialism, would they bring damage to Ukraine?
Well, the United States supports the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and I personally have been very impressed that all the parties involved in the Crimean issue seem to be very responsible in their comments and their policies recently. So I think you're asking me a hypothetical, which doesn't seem too probable in light of the policies and statements which have been made.
Okay, so that was dodging the answer. He didn't want to give a solid conclusion to that. He just wanted to move on, which is why it's good to see Lloyd Austin, as frustrating as it is to see that, you know, they still can't fire missiles into Russia. Lloyd Austin is actually on the ground in Kyiv in a surprise visit today. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's surprise visit in Kyiv 21 October comes as questions arise about the long-term sustainability of Western support for Ukraine's war effort. Okay. This was also interesting. This guy here, he was found dead and, well, murdered, clearly. Ukrainian intelligence has reported the elimination of the Russian war criminal involved in the barbaric strike on a shopping center in Kremenchuk. Dmitry Goldenokov, a pilot of the 52nd Heavy Bomber Aviation Regiment of the Russian Air Force, was found dead in Bryansk. He had been beaten to death with a hammer to the head. He was involved in the strike at the Armstor shopping center in Kremenchuk, which killed 22 people. Also, Golnikov is responsible for a missile strike on a residential building in Dnipro on January 14, 2023, where 46 civilian Ukrainians were killed, among them 6 children, the main directorate of the intelligence of Ukraine said. I think you're going to see a couple of different possible scenarios play out. The Russians are beaten, and then they're brought to trial, and there you have something similar to a Nuremberg type scenario. Short of that, after this war, if that doesn't happen, there will be a Mossad-like effort, in my estimation, and I could be very wrong, a Mossad-like effort that will track down and hunt down all of these people that were responsible from Ukraine into Russia, and I believe that's what will happen. One of those two scenarios. Russian army may be stronger after the war than it is today. Now, this is according to Christopher Cavoli, the commander of the United States European Command. He's in an interview with Der Spiegel, and he said this, quote, Russia has suffered losses in Ukraine, quite heavy losses. I mean, clearly today, record, this past month, record losses. But the Russian armed forces are learning, they are improving, they are applying the experience gained at war. At the end of the war in Ukraine, whatever it looks like, the Russian army will be stronger than it is today. These forces will be on the border of our alliance. They are commanded by the same people who already see us as enemies, and they will be very unhappy with how the war went. So he's assuming that Russia will lose. So we will have an opponent with real skills, a lot of troops, and clear intentions, Cavoli said. That is why we must be prepared and need armed forces that can withstand it. So he's seeing the writing on the wall, and he's explaining what may be coming down the pike. All right, last little bit. I thought this was fun and encouraging. This is how many drone operators does it take to screw in a light bulb? All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.